Decolonizing Journalism is a course that will be looking at and reimagining journalism in a different way. We want to look more critically at how news issues and news events are represented and covered in mainstream media. We want to disrupt the way that some issues have historically been reported on. And when I say disrupt, I mean we really want to sort of critically examine how they've been presented in the past in terms of framing and word choice. And we want to show readers, or we want to show news consumers and journalists too, and editors, how news can be presented and framed differently in a way that is more ethical and responsible. And so this course will be looking at the practice of decolonization through the context of journalism in 4 different ways, which is through the perspective of Indigenous people, primarily in Canada, as well as through Black Canadians, and through Canadians who live in Francophone areas within Canada, and then finally through the lens of the Global South. So we're covering a lot, but we've broken down the course into these 4 sections, you could say, and then we'll be doing a deep dive of each of these sections through the instructors who are journalists themselves and practitioners. And they will be taking learners through a really comprehensive journey and understanding towards, as I mentioned, showing learners how to represent these 4 communities in particular in a way that's more ethical.
As the part that I'm writing about is the Global South, and I'm talking, about how the Western media covers the rest of the world and the lens that we use on the rest of the world. And while a lot of the focus is on stories that we've carried in the past, I am hoping to talk about this issue of how we are covering the Middle East in the webinar section. So, Shenaz, I hope I didn't, repeat anything that you've said here, or
No.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's where I am at right now. You can probably sense that I am, deeply frustrated by the media lens that we are seeing even right now in the face of what is very likely a genocide. And the reason this course is so important is that it's not because we are supposed to take the side of Muslims versus non-Muslims, Arabs versus non-Arabs. It's not about taking sides of one identity, but it's understanding what justice is. And it's giving people an opportunity to, giving people the tools to how to recognize when you see biases in the media. Because most of us don't have the time, we don't have the training, right? By us, I mean like non-journalists. Until quite recently, people would just passively accept what had been told to them by mainstream media. And maybe at best you'll go to this place is right wing, that place is left wing. Let me read both and come to my own conclusion. And now with the variety of voices out there that are in some ways democratizing how mass communication is happening, but in many ways also concretizing how power is, it's cementing power and power structures and narratives from power structures. People are more confused when they read media. They don't know what to believe and they lose trust. And I feel like this course will go a long way towards giving people the tools to look at a story and to be able to criticize it through the lens that they'll be taught in all 4 sections, and with examples, although it's a short 12-week course, they'll actually have concrete examples. They will have, live webinars, and they can use that to read articles and to come to conclusions themselves about whether they think something is biased, whether they think some perspectives are missing, whose perspective is missing, what else could have been asked here. And I think whether or not they want to be journalists, at the end of this course, I think they're going to be very high, high level critical consumers of the news at the very least. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah, definitely. And then just a little quick question before we move on. Who is this course for? How accessible is it?
Yeah. Okay. So this course is for anyone, actually. A lot of people have asked me, do I need to be a journalist to take this course? Do I have to have some journalism experience? And my answer has always been, you need no experience at all, like in terms of writing or news writing. You just need to be interested in what you're probably consuming anyway on a daily basis. And if you are ever left in sort of the predicament that Shree just described, where you might suspect that there's bias, or you know that there is bias in what you're reading, but maybe you don't know how to decipher it or interpret it or respond to it, then this is the course for you. It will help you understand very specifically how the biases come through and help you respond to it. Because in order to respond to something, you need to be able to articulate yourself very specifically and very clearly about what you're seeing, right? When you do that, you will notice that you will get a different response from editors and senior producers within newsrooms, because they can follow what you're saying more easily, right? And I think a big part of journalism is sometimes taking the emotion out of what you are expressing and communicating. And when you do that, your words often land with more impact on your audience, right? So again, to take it back to the example of responding, like taking a letter of complaint to an editor in a newsroom, if you're able to sort of communicate that in almost journalistic terms impartially, you will have more impact with the person who's receiving it. And then this course is also for existing journalists and senior editorial leaders within newsrooms, to help them, and at journalism educators, I should add, to help them understand these things as well, right? And to learn how to tackle them when they come across them in their own editorial coverage. Because remember, all of the instructors are journalists. They're not actually, they're, other than like Dan David, none of them have really done too much teaching before. So they are real practitioners. And that's what I wanted from the start. Like, I felt like we needed two things in the instructors that we recruited for this course. One was that they had to be, current practitioners of journalism, and the other was that they had to be really good subject matter experts in each of these four areas.
Yeah, thank you. And then Shree, earlier you made a point about how the media frames things and Western bias and Western voice. So if we can kind of go back to that, I'm assuming that that's kind of a reason as to why this course was started or, talked about. So yeah, why did you really, both of you, feel it was really necessary to devise this course? And then how do you hope attendees will learn from it, learn from these concepts?
Yeah, I think it just, to reiterate a little bit of what I said previously. The course is about disrupting Eurocentric views, and it is being advertised as such. And so my hope is that people who are coming to the course come with a sense that news is Eurocentric in the first place, right? If you don't agree with the premise, then it's unlikely that you're going to spend a little bit of money to come to the course. But maybe you will. And then, you know what, that's fine. Then come and challenge the premise, because the whole point of the course is to be able to challenge the narrative, right? And so just because I say that the global South is looked upon through certain lens, and I can go through some of what I'm, planning to talk about, doesn't mean that I cannot be critiqued, right? I might not be doing it strongly enough. I might have missed points. I might be blinded by my own biases, right? And so definitely if there are people who think that there is no bias, they can come to the course and then explain why they think there is no bias. But I suspect it'll be people who understand that there is a bias, and it's evident right now. There is plenty of evidence unfolding in front of our very eyes about this bias, which in many ways, I would say that the Global South, coverage of the Global South in many ways is a combination of coverage of indigenous issues, coverage of Black issues, but not Francophone. And then the Global South. It's kind of a subset of that, because the same anti-Black lens that we use against Black Canadians is applied. That anti-Blackness, the sense of inferiority, is also applied to other countries, to non-European countries, right? And the same contempt we have for Indigenous peoples in Canada is what we have for Indigenous people that have been colonized anywhere else. So in some ways, it is a subset of that. But if you're interested, I can just go over some of the main point headlines of what I'm going to teach. But yeah, this is where I'll stop right now.
Yeah, kind of, what do you hope people will really take away from this course?
Right. So from the whole course or from my section?
From the whole course, yeah.
From the whole course, maybe Shenaz can talk to that then. Shenaz?
I really hope that they take away I hope that they take away a really fresh understanding of how people can be understood. Something as simple as that. It almost has nothing to do with media, because at the heart of this course is empathy and like learning how to understand other people better, people from different communities better, cultures better. That's really at the heart of everything, because when you are able to do that, when you are able to empathize, really genuinely empathize, then you can take that sentiment and apply it anywhere and everywhere, especially in the kind of, because you and I both live in societies that are incredibly multicultural, diverse. We are always having to interact with people who are very, very different from us. And, like content in a course like this is needed now more than ever, because of how incredibly polarized our countries have become. So that's really what's at the heart of this course, just a greater understanding of people, building more bridges, right, instead of walls.
Yeah, definitely. And then do you know if this course or something similar to it is being taught in Canada or just across North America at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'll give you my answer, and then maybe Shree might have something to add. But I did do my research before I pitched this course to school, to U of T School of Continuing Studies, and I did a sort of macro look at what similar courses or maybe even identical courses were being offered, and there really were none. And there continues actually to be none. I mean, I pitched this, I think, about 3 years ago now, actually. And there was nothing then, and there's still nothing now. I mean, when I say nothing, I mean in the way that we are approaching this course through these four lenses, right? You have courses now over the last year that have started or are starting that are called Decolonizing Media, something to that effect. Or like journalism courses that focus on one community in particular, like Indigenous or Black, or journalism and development, but you don't have one course where you are addressing all of these four areas under that central theme of decolonization. So I think it's really unique too for that reason. I think a lot of people have not even thought about how decolonization of journalism can be looked at within the context of the Global South or Francophone, for example, Francophone areas of Canada. So that's the part I'm really excited about, because I'd like to see how people receive that.
I'd add to that to say that's a really good point, that in Canada, the understanding of decolonization is often seen only through the lens of what indigenous peoples on Turtle Island might see it. So it's seen as as a part of the effort to decolonize from Canadian colonization of this land. But what Shenaz has done with this course and bringing all these disparate elements into it is what I have not seen this anywhere else. Where I might go and give a lecture on critical issues in journalism, and I might just talk about racism. But this kind of focus on bringing in Global South and trying to explain to people how that is also part of decolonization, I've never seen anywhere else. And I think that's giving people the words with which to understand and frame and analyze what they're reading in the media will be incredibly powerful through this course.
Yeah, so do you feel that this course or something similar to it should be an essential part of journalistic curriculum going through universities, through higher education?
I would say not only should a course like this be critical to journalism students, other higher education classes, but it should also be mandatory in newsrooms today. The newsrooms that exist today have journalists who have very little understanding. And I'm talking about legacy newsrooms. Digital newsrooms, online organizations have a different makeup, but legacy newsrooms have a shortage. There are attempts definitely to try to be more, it's still seen through the lens of being inclusive, but I think the decolonization lens, which has to apply to, from the point of planning a story, is desperately needed. And I think, I hope that newsrooms look at this course and think of actually having us have training sessions in them.
Yeah, definitely. And then just last question. So, this course is about decolonizing journalism, about looking at the inclusivity of media, the subjects that are being talked about, and not just the subjects, but the people covering in them and the people being talked to is not always super diverse or super representative of the whole, well, you guys, for you, Canada, for us, United States, but, kind of same demographic makeup. Is part of the problem, do you think part of the problem is a just lack of diversity in the newsrooms? And then how do we attract these underrepresented communities to join the media force?
Oh, I could talk about this for 1 hour, but I'll be quick so that Shenaz gets a turn. But so first of all, there is not, that artificial border between Canada and the United States doesn't actually change the fact of racism, right? Racism diffuses across those borders like clouds of toxic smoke. So it's the same racism, the same white supremacist hierarchy, the same Islamophobia, the same anti-Blackness, anti-indigeneity, all of that is cross-border. And media organizations talk a lot about how do we attract diverse people. And often what they simply mean is how do we have people with some melanin in them. They don't have to be Black, they don't have to be anything, just a little bit of melanin, so that we can check a box and appear good, appear like we are doing something equal. What they are not saying is, can I actually get somebody who has a totally different perspective, bring them to the table, value that perspective, be humble, know that what they're going to say is something I may not even like, but I'm going to have to force myself to get over my discomfort and continue to amplify them even when I disagree with them, even when I don't understand their point of view, and to be able to say, help me understand this. None of them are thinking of that. And for that to happen, your output, first of all, has to be something trustworthy. If you don't have people, journalists who want to join newspapers are not idiots. They can read newspapers or TV or, wherever. They can read the output. They can see that it's biased. That tells them whether that place is safe or not safe for them. So I think the focus on how do we hire them, where can we do this outreach, and which agencies can we go to, and then typically what then happens is the lightest skinned or the people that are most palatable to whiteness, even if they're very dark skinned, but they're really palatable to whiteness, they are the ones that will get hired over people whose voices are actually needed, which is that no matter what skin color you have, you're challenging the status quo, you're challenging the hierarchy. So that's...
Yeah, that's a really good way, really interesting way of looking at it, because I think what you're saying is that we need to move away from the checkboxing of numbers. Do we have 50% Black or minority journalists in this newsroom? And you're shifting towards, well, you know what? It doesn't matter who's actually in your newsroom, because the people who are there should just have this understanding of how to deal with these issues that come up, that are often and historically have been brought up by minority journalists, right? But you don't need to have those journalists there in order to espouse those and to raise those points, those viewpoints, right? And I like that point. Yeah,
like
we should,
right?
we should.
Like between a Muslim
not
woman
only
who
that.
between a Muslim woman who'll challenge the status quo and a white woman who'll challenge the status quo, if there are not enough Muslim women in the newsroom, then we should be hiring a Muslim woman, right? Just out of equity. But between a Muslim woman who doesn't challenge any status quo and a white woman who is challenging the status quo, I think that's where it'll become more challenging. So who do you then hire? Do you then want to just hire the person who will echo what you want and feel good, or do you actually challenge the system?
Yeah, but then even when you're grappling with that kind of scenario, it's important to understand maybe why the Muslim woman is not speaking up.
Correct.
There's an aspect there, right, where she
Correct.
could perhaps not be feeling empowered. And then
Exactly.
you have to look at like the power dynamics. Where is she in the newsroom versus the non-minority person who's speaking up? So yeah.
And how do we make it safe for them?
Yeah.
How do we make it safe for this person to feel supported in the newsroom should they want to speak up? Yeah.
So lots to think about, Maya. Lots to talk about.
That's a really good way of putting it, honestly. Hiring people who don't just check the diversity box, but who really add a different narrative, different perspective to the newsroom so that you can have that diversity, obviously. But thank you so much, ladies. I don't have any further questions unless you just want to add anything about the program or anything like that.
Yeah, no, maybe I'll just like throw in, I want to emphasize that this course is open to anyone, anywhere in the world, so anyone can sign up for it. And it will be self-paced and online. All the content is online, but there will be about 8 live webinars, synchronous webinars for an hour and a half that will be held in the evenings on a weekday. So, it's been built to accommodate working professionals. So the webinars will take place in the evening. Of course, I guess it varies according to your time zone, but yeah, it's we're really excited to launch it, and we're really excited to really also get to know the learners that take it, because there will be a lot of opportunity during the webinars to engage and interact with learners. They're not meant to be lectures. Yeah, but thank you so much for your interest. I really
Of course, I know.
Yeah.